It's been 5 months since the last Pokémon Presents, but Pokémon recently announced that we have another one coming on Tuesday the 22nd of July. I think we're going to see some big news in this presentation, and in this video we're going to explore exactly what that might be and why it could be very exciting. Hit the subscribe button, and thank you so much to the Galarian gang for powering another video. Click the join button for access to all the perks like custom emojis in chat and comments, plus exclusive access to member series and TCG content. Now let's get into the video. So let's set the backdrop for this upcoming presentation that's now less than 2 weeks away. Since Pokémon Presents became a thing in 2020, we've typically had the main big event on February the 27th, otherwise known as Pokémon Day, and then a follow-up in the summer that typically happens between June and August. However, last year in 2024, we didn't get the summer one at all. The reason for this was likely to allow some more development time on the big upcoming titles like ZA, Champions, and Gen 10, meaning this year, Pokémon probably have more to reveal. After the functional and visual issues with Scarlet and Violet, we could tell the games were revealed and released way too soon after Legends Arceus came out, and before they were ready. That's a mistake that the Pokémon company cannot repeat for the next titles, especially considering the significance of 2026, their 30th anniversary year, when Gen 10 will likely be revealed. The main series games have needed way more time in the oven over the last few gens, and now that extra time is being afforded, it means that Gen 9 is going to end up being an era that lasts for at least 4 years. This has happened before, but not for a long while. The last 4-year gap was between Gens 4 and 5, and even then, we got Platinum and Heart Gold Soul Silver, 2 full main series hype seasons and releases to keep us busy across that 4-year gap. So I think Pokemon have finally realised they need extra time to make truly polished products, particularly in the Switch 2 era, when high-res, high-frame-rate development is essential, along with fleshed-out stories and characters. So the gap is a good sign. However, this year we are getting the Summer Presents, and I think we're going to see some more details about these products that have been in the oven for a while. Firstly, as always, we'll get updates on new features for all the mobile games like Go, Sleep, Masters EX, Cafe Remix, etc, plus updates to the anime. Pokémon TCG Pocket is also very popular right now and has seen a lot of success since it was released, so we'll almost certainly get an update on that, probably with a new expansion being announced, and we'll see more about the brand new Real TCG series as we pivot from the TCG Scarlet and Violet series to TCG Mega Evolution. That's a pretty big deal, and more on how important that could be for the games in a moment. But the real main series events are always left until the end of the presentation, in this case ZA, which we already know about, but maybe an extra big surprise too. Before we get into what that surprise might be, and we will, it's important to understand that this Presents marks a big milestone for the company. This is the first time we've had a Presents with the Switch 2 out, and that means Nintendo themselves can't hold anything up due to embargoes. For example, when Pokemon now show us new ZA footage, there will be no more hiding the optimal version of it captured on the Switch 2 system. Finally, we will see the 60 FPS smooth, crispy version of the game. We've seen glimpses of this in the last Nintendo Direct, but it was very short. Now, Pokemon has the free will to show us the game in all its glory. And considering the Scarlet and Violet Switch 2 update was an enormous improvement over the base game, ZA, which Game Freak have developed after having even more time with the Switch 2 dev kit, should look even better. So, Switch 2 ZA footage is certainly coming, but what exactly will we see in ZA? Well, I think we'll get a pretty decent deep dive, maybe 5 minutes or so of narrated content around new locations, characters, some mechanics, plus a cinematic teasing the wider plot and what exactly is at stake in this story. Hopefully then, we'll get a real insight into the plot and what we'll be doing in Lumiose, connecting dots about info that we've already been given, like more about Quasartico Inc., the ZA Royale, how Zygarde fits in, and more about the supporting characters, hopefully also introducing 1 or 2 we haven't seen yet. Interestingly, ZA has been given the highest age rating of any Pokemon main series game in history. Now, having to be 10 to play the game isn't earth-shattering, but it kind of is for Pokemon, and it's a sign that the Pokemon Company, now nearly 30 years old, are maturing in a sense, and they don't want to alienate older fans, especially in the Legend series, which is designed to expand the lore and story of legacy regions. The Legend series is geared towards older players in that sense, so this is a nice balance that allows them to push some more mature themes, therefore hopefully creating a better story, without alienating younger players either. What we've seen of Legend ZA so far doesn't look too brutal, though the whole idea of the city's aura changing at night with these street level battles will lead to a tense and alert atmosphere for the player. But I think there are going to be slightly more serious tones in the game, and this presentation might be the right time to reveal them. X and Y's story touched on war, and on essentially mass murder, and the character that was responsible for that was AZ, the same guy who is now running a hotel that we are staying in as the protagonist of this story. So plot-wise, I think we're going to be touching on some serious themes of how he's dealing with his own actions after his reconciliation with his Floette at the end of X and Y, and perhaps what his current goal is now he's supposedly at peace. Is AZ the threat, or is he perhaps part of the efforts to stop it? If you've seen this recent video I posted, you'll also know that I'm pretty sure there's going to be an international police element running through this game, featuring Luca and Emma from the XY postgame. And if I was high up in the international police, I might have something to say about AZ's murderous past, even if he is an immortal giant. In the main artwork, I believe this character here could be Emma, who's supposed to have been running the Looker Bureau since the end of X and Y. You'll notice she's opposite the main character, engaged in battle with us using a Mega Lucario. This could be a kind of recreational battle, but seeing as it's the main artwork, I think it could indicate that she's some sort of antagonist in the story, perhaps because, as head of the Looker Bureau, she might want to take down AZ for his criminal past, and we might be protecting him. Last time we saw Emma, she was being controlled by Team Flare's Zerosic using the Essentia expansion suit to commit some terrible crimes. Then she was rescued by the XY protagonist and Luca, and then essentially abandoned, at least emotionally abandoned. So she's been through a lot and could be a big player in the story. Whatever direction this ZA story goes, I very much think in this presents we could get a tease around Emma and what she's up to in this game. There are also several other characters from the X and Y games that could show up. The group of kids who saved the Kalos region back then, including Calum, Serena and the rest of that group. Professor Sycamore, interestingly, kind of looks like the main character a little bit, so he could make an appearance too, maybe as the father of the protagonist. Plus Diantha and various other Pokemon League representatives like gym leaders and Elite Four members from X and Y, some of which have likely changed rank as time has progressed in Kalos, could all have parts to play. There are other characters who could make a return that would be a little bit more eye-opening, like certain Team Flare members, but I don't think they would reveal that in a presentation, but rather save that for the actual game itself to reveal. Gameplay-wise, I think we will find out more about the combat system. As I mentioned, X and Y did introduce a fair bit of unique technology for the human characters, like Lysander's cybernetic suit and Zerosic's Essentia suit, and I think this is a development from some of the tech that we saw in the Colosseum series. More on that shortly. I do feel that this sort of technology may have a part to play in the gameplay as we get further into the story. The focus in this game is very much on synchronized reflexes when it comes to Pokemon battles, with the humans being directly involved. And when you think about the Team Flare tech and things like the Signa suits from Master ZX, then I think you very clearly arrive at this concept of controlling energy that helps you to be in sync with your Pokemon during battle through bonds. So I think we may see a reveal of some sort of additional battle mechanic around this technology. But the main poster child of ZA's battling gameplay is Mega Evolution, so definitely expect to find out, firstly, more about how it works in this new battle format, and secondly, potentially some new Mega Evolutions. Here's where I have to give a spoiler warning, because we are going to mention the alleged leaked Megas, so mute for the next 30 seconds or so if you don't want to hear any spoilers about these new Mega forms that are supposedly going to be in Legend ZA. Here is the alleged list of Megas, and again, this is not actually confirmed yet. However, if this is a real list, you might expect one or two of these to be revealed. Riddler Coup recently tweeted this hint, which we covered in a different video, and we've speculated that it could be a tease for either a Mega Dragonite with its supposed cloud-based design, perhaps a new Mega Mewtwo Z form, or an outside shout is for this to be some sort of angelic Mega Pokemon that can yo-yo between two states, like maybe Life and Death realms, maybe a Mega Zygarde or something else. But I think we can expect maybe 2 new Megas to keep us pumped for the remaining 3 months of the hype season. We haven't heard too much about Zygarde thus far, so even if we don't see Mega Zygarde, expect Zygarde's role in the game to perhaps be elaborated on a bit more here as well. And the other huge piece of ZA news that I think is very plausible to get is the revelation of additional cities within the ZA game. And with that in mind, here's the key clue that I think we've had very recently. A couple of weeks ago, the trailer for the Mega Evolution TCG series dropped, and this is the set that is literally inspired by ZA and the return of Megas. In the trailer, Mega Lucario very clearly is in an American, or Unnovan, city. And if you doubt this, just literally look at the buildings, and even the smaller details, like look at this traffic light compared to a New York traffic light. It's the same. And so, I think this is definitely set in Castelia City. It's most certainly not a French traffic light, which are black, so this is not in Lumiose. So why would they bother setting this little teaser for a Mega Evolution TCG series specifically in Castelia City? The more I think about it, I'm pretty sure that the ZA game could quite easily take us to individual cities in other regions, with the main culprits in my mind being Castelia, Goldenrod, and Cerulean. I'm going to do another video that deep dives into why I think these cities are relevant and will appear in ZA. But for now, I'll just say this: go and look at the list of alleged leaked Megas, look at the ZA starters, and see if you can make the link. And of course, subscribe for that video dropping soon. When you think about the game's map, I find it pretty unlikely that Pokemon would go from 3 massive maps consisting of 2 whole regions and a terrarium in Scarlet and Violet to a single city, even if they massively upscale Lumiose and give it underground areas and different districts. It just doesn't seem big enough. The last Legends game had 6 provinces that made up Hisui if you include Jubilife, and though it's possible to make Lumiose feel that massive, I'm not entirely convinced they would stretch it out that much. Moving away from ZA, we are approaching the 30th anniversary very quickly, and so during the next February 2026 presents, it would seem likely that Gen 10 would be announced. It wouldn't make any sense if Gen 10 was revealed before ZA has even come out, so don't expect that this time around. However, we have 2 very conceivable options for pretty big deal spin-offs or remakes that might well be announced here. If Gen 10 is announced in February, it probably won't actually launch until the back end of 2026, meaning that the majority of the anniversary year would be spent without the fans having a new game to play. Yes, we'd have ZA, the TCG, etc., but by the time that 2026 begins, ZA will have been out for 2 months, and a large portion of players will have already finished it. So logically, something needs to keep us occupied in the main series of games whilst we wait for Gen 10. If ZA follows in Legends Arceus' footsteps, then it won't have a DLC, though that remains a remote possibility that would obviously not be announced before the game has even come out. But I think the more likely option would be either a Classics game or a Colosseum game. Colosseum and XD Gale of Darkness are already coming to the GameCube Virtual Console app, and I think at some point in this Presents, they'll tell us the release date, and that date, in my view, is probably going to be literally the same day as the Presents, i.e. after the presentation's done, it will immediately be available on the GameCube app. But imagine if this led into a bigger announcement. Spin-offs like Pokemon Unite, New Pokemon Snap, and Pokken Tournament DX were all announced in the summer Presents, some of those being big remakes or remasters of classic Pokemon spin-offs. And Mystery Dungeon DX, another remake of classic Pokemon spin-offs, was announced in a Rogue January presentation as well, back when it was still called Pokemon Direct. Colosseum and XD are both highly regarded and critically acclaimed games that undersold due to the low sales of the GameCube system itself, so I'm sure it's been on their mind to remaster, and in a perfect world, hopefully some of those original Genius Sonority guys have been cooking something up for us. But if my Castelia theory is right, remember the Colosseum games are set in the equivalent of Phoenix, Arizona in the Ore region. This is a region on the same landmass as Unova, essentially each making up a state in Pokemon's equivalent of the USA. And if we do see the technology returning that I mentioned earlier, this could be the beginning of realizing the amazing Colosseum stories on the Switch too, giving them a new lease of life on a console that gives it far more sales potential, beginning with remasters of the originals and then perhaps eventually leading into a brand new third installment fulfillment that links into the main series games, including that tech in X and Y and ZA. Hopefully, Pokémon Champions will also get some attention here and we'll be able to see full gameplay and more details on that. But if we don't get a new Colosseum, then there are other possibilities. A new Mystery Dungeon, Pokémon Ranger or Conquest, a new Pokémon Snap 2, or perhaps more likely a Classics release of retro main series Pokémon games, but with a twist. Click the link at the end of the video if you want to find out more about my ideas for that Classics release that I really do believe is coming soon, and let me know all of your thoughts along with anything I may have missed. And until next time, love you gang.